What's up y'all, BK back here with another paddle review. We're going to be reviewing a paddle that I think is going to be one of the most popular paddles in 2025. This paddle is something that a lot of people have been looking forward to from a brand that's been under a lot of controversy over 2024. They're coming out with a completely new series in 2025, hoping to redefine their image and their brand. Today, we are going to be reviewing the new Joola Pro 4 series. Let's do it. Now, just a disclosure, I have not been paid to put out this review and no review is guaranteed. These companies do send me the paddles for free and I do have a discount code with Joola. You can use the code BK10 and use the link in the description to get that referral. All commissions that I get from this basically go back into help supporting the channel. So if you do like this review and you do want to get your hands on the new Joola Pro 4, make sure to use the link in the description and use code BK10. Now, diving into the review of the Pro 4, the Pro 4 has some very interesting technology in this paddle. It is basically the same shape, the same core, and the same playability as the 3S. They've just made a small change towards the bottom face of this paddle on the inside that has really increased the stability and the sweet spot of this paddle. So Joola is calling this the TFP technology, where they have now foam inserts in the bottom corners of the face, where you have extra foam inserts outside the edge wall that allows this paddle to have that increased stability and also brings the balance point of the paddle down. Now, with the 3S, I used to put strips of lead tape around the bottom faces of my paddle because I like my balance down, and so do a lot of other pro players. Now, Joola has taken this feedback from the pros and inserted foam into the bottom corners of the face so that you don't have to necessarily add that extra lead tape to the bottom corners of the face. The paddle now already has extra weight in the bottom, but what this foam really does is it adds to the stability of this paddle. So this paddle plays a lot more stable and has a much bigger sweet spot, so you can hit towards the outside edges of the paddle, and the playability is still very similar to hitting the middle of that paddle compared to the 3S. This is the major change that we're seeing in the Pro 4, and we're going to talk about how this affects the power, pop, spin, and control of this paddle in this review. If you enjoyed this review, please make sure to subscribe to the channel below. Over 90% of viewers of this channel are not subscribed, so please make sure to hit that subscribe button. It really helps us support the channel a lot so we can continue to put out more great content for you. Now, before we dive into the performance of this paddle, the specifications of this paddle, I'll put them up on the screen so you can look at them for yourself. Joola is only going to come out with the Perseus shape on March 4th, 2025, and all the other shapes that we're used to seeing, the Magnus, Scorpius, and the Hyperion, will come at a later date in April. So the original release will only feature the Perseus shape of paddles, and it will also feature the new Agassi shape of paddles. So the new Agassi shape has a more flared top, very similar to tennis rackets, with a curved edge on the top and a narrower bottom. That's going to really put that sweet spot much higher and bring the balance point of the paddle higher, so tennis players are really going to enjoy playing with that Agassi shape. But we are not going to see the Magnus, Scorpius, and Hyperion until April. The Perseus is going to come in two thicknesses, the 14mm and the 16mm, and the playability of each of these is distinctly different, so I would stay tuned towards the end of this video where we break down the difference between the two shapes so that you can figure out which thickness you're going to prefer. Now, diving into the power and pop of this paddle, similar to the 3S, that propulsion core does give you that exponential power curve with this paddle, so slower shots do feel very in control and stiffer, whereas faster shots really engage that propulsion core, and bigger swings allow you to generate exponentially more power than those softer shots. So that is definitely something that has stayed true with the Pro 4 as well, similar to the 3S. Now, because there are those foam inserts towards the bottom face of the paddle, this paddle does not have as much flexion as the 3S. So the 3S, in my opinion, is still more powerful and has more pop than the Pro 4, but the Pro 4 is definitely still towards that upper echelon of power paddles, and it does have a lot of juice to work with. So if you're looking for a replacement to your mod, I would pick up a 16mm Pro 4, or I would wait until the 3S dual certification model is available in that 16mm, and then you can go with that paddle instead. So these are the two options that most power players are going to prefer coming from the mod. So if you are looking for that replacement, the Pro 4 is a fantastic replacement for that. Now, what I really liked about this paddle is that the spin on this paddle was extremely high. The shape that I was able to get off this paddle was absolutely ridiculous on some of these shots. I personally also got to hit with the Magnus Shape, and the Magnus Shape had exponentially more spin in my opinion compared to the Perseus 14mm. The 16mm paddles have a much higher dwell time, and that dwell time results in increased spin. So if you are a player that likes to really play a spin heavy style of game, definitely look towards getting yourself a 16mm Pro 4 rather than the 14mm. The 16mm does have that enhanced dwell time and a more plush feel. It almost feels more similar to the mod because of how long the ball sits on that paddle face. And with that plush feeling, you have a lot more stability and the ability to add more spin with that as well. So that is something to look for. Spin players, definitely go pick up a 16mm over the 14mm. You will not be disappointed. I was able to hit some crazy drops with insane top spin, really getting that ball to kick out. And even my huge drives from the baseline, especially when somebody sliced the ball towards me, the amount of spin that I was able to generate, my drives were literally passing under people's paddles as they tried to volley it, because that's how much spin I was able to generate off this paddle. And don't even have to say it, but my slice returns again felt incredibly good with this paddle. I was getting anybody and everybody to hit that third shot into the net, including Andre Agassi, which will be something I take away with me for the rest of my life. I will always have that in my bag. My slice worked against Andre Agassi, but the Pro 4 really did the work. It has very high spin rates. Loved how this paddle performed in the spin game. Now, diving into the touch and feel of this paddle, that is really where this paddle stood out in my opinion compared to the 3S. The 3S really with that propulsion core, the sweet spot wasn't as big as I would have liked it to be. Personally, I used the Magnus Shape, and if you go towards the bottom of that paddle, the paddle plays very dead because the face is so big and that propulsion core is only towards the top half of that paddle. Anything below that middle line on the Magnus was really almost like a dead spot, and I wouldn't get the purchase that I was looking for. However, those foam inserts really allow you to feel the ball, and that is really where this Pro 4 stood out to me in terms of comparing it to the 3S. The feel of this paddle is extremely good with that touch style of game, and the sweet spot is enhanced compared to your 3S. Now, what I did feel with this paddle was the 14mm played very stiff. If you are a fan of stiffer paddles, the 14mm is great for you. I play with a 14mm Magnus 3S, and that paddle was way more plush than the Pro 4 14mm. The Pro 4 14mm felt much stiffer than the 3S 14mm, so if you did enjoy playing with either a mod or a 14mm 3S and you liked how the ball felt off that paddle face, with the Pro 4 you might have to transition to a 16mm if you are looking for that more plush feel. The stiffness of the 14mm really caught me off guard. I don't know whether it was because we were playing in extremely cold weather in Vegas, but I have also heard from a lot of other people that have tested this paddle that the 14mm did feel very stiff in their hand as well. So the impact of the ball is a little bit harsh on that 14mm, something that really took away the experience for me, but the 16mm is amazing. Personally, I've been using 14mm for almost over a year now, but with this paddle, I really think the 16mm Pro 4 might be my new paddle of choice. It probably will be my new main for tournaments. That is probably what I'm going to go with. I'm going to wait it out for the Magnus 16mm because I really did enjoy playing with that paddle, but the Perseus 16mm also plays fantastic. I think a lot of people are going to gravitate towards that paddle. Now I did want to put in a special section for that Agassi Shape. Now the Agassi paddle is very unique in its shape. We have seen some smaller brands put out similar shapes, but nothing from a high profile brand like Joola before. This shape, they really took in a lot of advice from Andre Agassi on how to create the shape and what these tennis players prefer in their paddle. So this new Andre Agassi shape has a flared top. That flared top with that narrow bottom, it still got that foam inserts in the corners, and it still does have that propulsion core, but that flared top really brings that sweet spot and balance point much higher up on the paddle. So a lot of tennis players that like to hit big drives that make contact further away from their hand are really going to enjoy playing with this Agassi paddle. Now the Agassi paddle, in my opinion, had much higher spin rates than the regular Pro 4. The amount of shape I was able to get off the Agassi paddle is probably the highest I've gotten off of any paddle till date. It's just absolutely ridiculous. I was hitting speed ups from the transition zone with just my wrist flicks, and that ball would go over the net and down so quickly that I almost couldn't believe my eyes. As much as tennis players are going to love this Agassi shape, I think a lot of pickleball players should probably avoid this paddle because, again, that balance point and sweet spot is a lot higher up on that paddle. So if you aren't used to being able to use your wrist on your swings and really shape the ball and allow that topspin to do the work for you to control the power, this paddle is going to be harder for you to play with. Now, what I found the adjustment for me was I was still making contact much lower on the paddle on some of my resets and some of my dinks, and I was losing a lot of control because, again, the sweet spot is a lot higher up on this paddle. So it took me a little while to adjust to that, but once I did, I felt like I was playing tennis again. I used it against Agassi himself, which, again, dream come true. Can't believe that happened. Still pinching myself about it. But in that game, I was able to generate a lot of spin on my two-handed backhand. Some of these third shot drops that I was hitting, just dropping into the corner, absolutely ridiculous. But it did take me that time to get used to feeling the paddle out and really getting used to hitting the ball further away from my hand than I'm used to with all my other paddles. So if you are a tennis player coming into the game, definitely go pick up the Agassi paddle. You will love it. No doubt about that. But if you are coming from other racket sports, or if you have no racket experience, I would go towards a Perseus just because it's going to help you learn the game of pickleball better than the Agassi Shape will. But the Agassi Shape for tennis players, absolute perfect choice. Go pick it up, no doubt about that. Now the nice thing with the Agassi series is it does come in 3 different tiers. Similar to tennis rackets where you have a pro version and then different tiers of rackets under that with similar designs like replica paddles from $50, $100, $150, $200, and then that $300 premium range. Joola has come out with 3 different tiers for this new Agassi series. The Champion series is going to be that under $60 price range for a lot of those beginners that are simply looking for a paddle that'll help them get into the game and get started. The Edge series is now going to be that sub $100 paddle, more geared towards that performance intermediate player that wants more technology in the paddle, that's looking for more spin and power, but still doesn't need that pro level $280 paddle. And then you have the Agassi Pro version, which is that $280 version, similar to the Pro 4. It is the Agassi Shape of that Pro 4 style of paddle. So these 3 tiers of paddles is something that I hope Joola continues to do with all their other shapes. It is much needed in the sport. We do want to see a Ben Johns in the Champion and Edge as well, a Anna Bright in the Champion and Edge as well. I think it's going to be great for them to tier their paddles out, especially the ones that are signatures of their pro players. It's something we've seen in tennis for a long time, but not in pickleball. So hopefully in pickleball, we'll be able to see this as well. Very excited about that. I think Joola finally is now starting to gear their paddles more towards the community rather than just the pros. So hopefully they keep doing that. So the lineup of pro paddles from Joola is now going to be the Joola 3S UPA-A certified only, the Joola 3S with a dual certification, the Joola Pro 4 with a dual certification, and Joola will also be coming out with a Pro 4 that's UPA-A certified only. Now what that means is basically USAPA and UPA-A have different standards for grit and spin. Pro players love to have that enhanced grit on the PPA tour, so the UPA-A levels of grit are much higher than the USAPA levels of grit. So the only difference between the dual certified version paddle paddles and the UPA-A certified only paddles will be that grit factor. The 3S currently has that UPA-A level of grit. The dual certified Pro 4 will have a lower level of grit, and the dual certified version of the 3S will also have a lower version of grit. Joola will be coming out with a Pro 4 that's UPA-A certified only that will have that higher level of grit. So this is what you need to know with all these paddles. What's going to happen is the 3S is now going to be priced lower at $260, while the Pro 4 will now go up to that $280 price tag that we're used to seeing from Joola. And these dual certified paddles and the UPA-A certified only paddles will be your option for both those paddles. Now, as I mentioned, the price of this paddle comes out to $280. You can use the code BK10 at Joola.com. I'm not sure if the code will work when Joola first releases their paddles. Usually for newer paddles, they like to wait a month or two before the discount code applies. So if you are looking to get that paddle right now, please make sure to use the link in the description. That is the affiliate link for me. It'll really help us support the channel if you do end up getting the paddle. It's a really free of cost way for you to help support the channel so that we can continue putting out more great videos for you. If you enjoyed this review, please make sure to subscribe to the channel below. Over 90% of viewers of this channel are not subscribed, so please make sure to hit that subscribe button. It really helps us support the channel a lot so we can continue to put out more great content for you. Comment below what other paddles you'd like to see me review. Make sure to like the video, share the video, all the fun things. Also follow me at BK_Pickleball on Instagram. I put out a lot of great content on there, including a tip from Andre Agassi himself, who taught us all how to hit a two-handed backhand. He's very famous for that in tennis, so it's really nice to see him talk about how he transitioned the shot from tennis to pickleball. So make sure to go follow me on Instagram at BK_Pickleball. And until next time, I'll see you later.